Cleopatra's Enigma, Love or Power? Sparkles, the last queen of Egypt, captivated the hearts of Caesar and Antony, but at what cost? In this video, we'll uncover the secrets of her life, from intrigue and political maneuvering to luxury and tragedy. Discover the real Cleopatra, an ideal of beauty or a cold-blooded intriguer? Subscribe and watch. Fire. She was a symbol of beauty, but her true appearance remains a mystery. Power, passion, and betrayal intertwined in her legendary life. This is Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. Discover what a woman whose weapon was seduction could achieve, and what the most influential men were willing to sacrifice for love, or cold calculation. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like this video. Unravel the mystery of Cleopatra. Her name became a symbol of beauty, yet debates about her true appearance continue. She elevated the art of intrigue to new heights, living a legendary life where power, passion, and betrayal intertwined in a dangerous game. We're talking about the last queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. Let's explore what a woman whose weapon was seduction could achieve, what the world's most influential men were willing to do for passion, and delve into a story that will make you question what truly drove Cleopatra, love or cold calculation. Whatever your conclusions, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell, and like this video, you'll enjoy it. Cleopatra VII was born in 69 or 70 BC and hailed from the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled Egypt for 3 centuries. The dynasty was founded by one of Alexander the Great's generals, Ptolemy I Soter. If you're interested in the biography of Alexander the Great, feel free to watch our video, the link is in the description. Cleopatra's mother remains unknown. She might have been a concubine of Ptolemy X Alexander I, Cleopatra's father. When Cleopatra was 14, Ptolemy was expelled from the throne, but later regained power with Roman support, paying them handsomely. Soon after, Ptolemy died, leaving behind a questionable legacy. In his will, he left the throne to Cleopatra and her younger brother Ptolemy XIII. In this dynasty, almost all boys were named Ptolemy, and all girls Cleopatra. Honestly, it's a rather strange tradition, one we wouldn't want to keep. Cleopatra was 18 and her brother 9 when they ascended the throne. According to ancient Egyptian custom, Cleopatra married him, becoming regent wife and receiving the official title of Thea Philopator, a goddess who loves her father. Initially, Cleopatra ruled alone, setting her brother aside, but he gained the support of the court and regained power. Cleopatra was forced to flee to Syria, where she began to gather an army. Meanwhile, the Roman general Pompey the Great, defeated by Julius Caesar, fled to Egypt, hoping to find refuge. However, as soon as he landed, he was killed on the orders of Ptolemy XIII. The young ruler wanted to please Caesar, but miscalculated. Caesar, pursuing Pompey, landed in Egypt and was furious. He ordered Pompey's head to be solemnly buried near the walls of Alexandria. Ptolemy tried to escape to Egypt's eastern border, but Caesar forced him to return. Cleopatra understood she needed Caesar's support to regain the throne, but reaching Alexandria, let alone the palace surrounded by Ptolemy's forces, was difficult. Cleopatra, taking only one friend, Apollodorus of Sicily, with her, got into a small boat. Under cover of darkness, she landed near the royal palace. She climbed into a bedroll and stretched out inside it. Apollodorus tied the roll with a strap and carried it through the courtyard to Caesar. Cleopatra is often depicted as an ideal of beauty. Legendary actresses like Vivien Leigh, Sophia Loren, Elizabeth Taylor, and Monica Bellucci have portrayed her. However, the queen's real appearance remains a mystery. Known images are based on profiles carved on coins and a very schematic bas-relief from a temple in Dendra. There are also busts, but these are most likely idealized. Some historians suggest that the statue of the Esquiline Venus might have been modeled after her during Cleopatra's stay in Rome. On coins, Cleopatra is depicted with masculine features, a strong jawline, a sloping forehead, and an aquiline nose, intended to emphasize her power. However, other artifacts show a more refined image with round cheeks, wavy hair, and a small chin. Plutarch's description survives, though he never saw her personally. her beauty was not of that surpassing kind that captivates at first sight, but her presence possessed an irresistible charm, and hence her personal appearance, combined with the persuasive charm of her eloquence, and the extraordinary power of her character, created a fascination which was quite unrivaled and made its way into the innermost soul. Cleopatra is considered a pioneer of cosmetic procedures. It is said she washed her face with rose water, bathed in sour goat's milk, used a crocodile dung scrub for her body, and lanolin and wax boiled from sheep's wool for her face. She may have used lead-based makeup for whitening, following the fashion of the time. However, the lead probably didn't harm her much. And this refined young lady, wrapped in a bedroll or carpet, appears before Caesar, essentially her enemy, who sided with her brother. Caesar was 52 years old, his legal wife awaited him at home. Yet he unexpectedly fell in love with 21-year-old Cleopatra and decided to support her, becoming embroiled in a civil war. Ptolemy XIII led the resistance. Caesar and Cleopatra spent 6 months under siege, awaiting reinforcements from Rome. Thanks to Caesar, the rebels were defeated. Ptolemy drowned in the Nile during his escape. Afterward, Caesar and Cleopatra embarked on a joint Nile journey on 400 ships with a grand celebration. Cleopatra became the ruler of Egypt under Roman protection. She aimed to restore the greatness of the Egyptian Empire and simultaneously make the Romans her allies through her influence on Julius Caesar. Shortly after Caesar's departure for Rome, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Ptolemy Caesar. He entered history under the nickname Caesar Ion, meaning Little Caesar. A year later, Caesar invited Cleopatra to Rome, formally to conclude an alliance between Rome and Egypt. Cleopatra was given a villa on the Tiber River. She hosted prominent Romans who hastened to pay their respects. This irritated Roman senators and increased their desire to eliminate Caesar. 18 months later, he was assassinated by conspirators led by Brutus and Cassius. Cleopatra was forced to return with her son to Egypt. Caesar's adopted son and heir Octavian, and the Roman general Mark Antony, set out to avenge Cassius and Brutus. After defeating the conspirators, Antony demanded a meeting with Cleopatra to answer accusations of aiding Caesar's assassins. However, she didn't rush, letting the general know that queens only appear when they deem it necessary. When the day came, Cleopatra's arrival caused a sensation. She arrived on a ship resembling a floating palace, shining with gold and purple. Cleopatra, in the luxurious attire of Aphrodite, was surrounded by servants and musicians. The vessel left a trail of fragrant smoke. Cleopatra invited Antony to a lavish feast, where she confidently refuted all accusations, claiming she had actually intended to help him and Octavian. Antony was completely captivated. As a soldier, he was unfamiliar with the refined style of salon conversation. Cleopatra recognized him as a vulgar soldier and readily matched his style of communication. Antony became Cleopatra's perfect victim. Although a talented commander and brave in times of danger, in peacetime he partied, squandered money, and mingled with actresses and prostitutes in Rome. Antony had a strict wife who had accustomed him to obeying female will. Therefore, Antony couldn't resist Cleopatra, and they arrived in Alexandria as lovers. There, they founded a club of Dionysus devotees called the Union of the Unparalleled. In the close circle of those close to the throne, lavish feasts were held. After drinking, Mark Antony liked to dress as a commoner and roam cheap taverns, getting into drunken brawls. Cleopatra was always by his side. Later, Cleopatra bore Mark Antony twins, whom she named Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Rumors of their affair reached Rome. Fulvia, Antony's legal wife, attempting to separate her husband from Cleopatra, staged a rebellion against Octavian, but he quickly suppressed it. However, Antony was still forced to return to Rome. Soon, Fulvia died, and Antony made a deal with Octavian, marrying his sister. For 4 years, he lived modestly in a villa in Athens. His wife bore him 2 daughters and raised his sons from his first marriage. But conflicts arose in the couple, and Antony decided to use this to his advantage, leading his army there. In Antioch, he met Cleopatra, and this meeting proved fatal. Antony gave Cleopatra Cyprus, as well as cities on the Syrian and Cilician coasts of the Mediterranean Sea, and the kingdom of Chalcidice in modern Lebanon. And Cleopatra bore Antony a third child, a boy, Ptolemy Philadelphus. However, Mark Antony's campaign against the Romans ended in failure. He fled, not to his legal wife, but to Cleopatra's arms. Later, inspired by love, Antony went on new campaigns, returning with gifts for his beloved's children, the title of King of Kings for Caesar Ion, and King of Armenia for Alexander Helios. Even 2-year-old Ptolemy Philadelphus received Syria and Asia Minor, and Cleopatra Selene, part of modern Libya. However, not all these territories were actually controlled by the Antony-Cleopatra union. Octavian was enraged by Mark Antony's behavior, his disrespect for his sister, and the growing power of Egypt, and he spread rumors that Antony was a traitor, under the influence of the dissolute Cleopatra. Therefore, Octavian declared war on Egypt. Antony divorced Octavia and married Cleopatra. Enjoying love and indulging in feasts with Cleopatra, he fought without enthusiasm. Cleopatra's intrigues in Antony's camp led to some commanders switching sides to Octavian, who was actively preparing for confrontation. In the decisive naval battle at Actium, Antony and Cleopatra's forces were completely routed. The pair fled to Alexandria, where they awaited their inevitable end for a year. They continued to hold lavish celebrations and founded a new club, the Union of the Condemned, whose members vowed to die together. Cleopatra experimented with poisons, searching for a quick and painless way to die. When Octavian arrived in Alexandria, Cleopatra and her servants barricaded themselves in the royal mausoleum. Antony was sent a false message about her suicide, and in despair, he fell on his sword. He was brought to Cleopatra and died in her arms. Cleopatra entered into negotiations with Octavian, perhaps hoping to seduce him as well, but she was no longer so young and attractive, and Octavian proved less susceptible than Caesar and Antony. Octavian allowed Cleopatra to bury Antony, hoping to later bring her to Rome as a trophy for a triumphal march. However, when Octavian received Cleopatra's letter, she was already dead. There are several versions of her suicide: she made a cobra bite her, or used a poisonous ointment or vial of poison. Only a statue of Cleopatra in chains was carried through Rome during the triumph. Antony's children were raised by Octavia, and Caesar's son, Caesar Ion, was executed by Octavian's order. Egypt became a Roman province. The last queen of Egypt was buried next to Antony, but the location of her final resting place remains a mystery. As we know, history is written by the victors. In his biography, Octavian portrayed Cleopatra as an immoral temptress. This image was supported by Roman writers and their successors. They created the Cleopatra we know today, history's first femme fatale. We would also like to know your opinion. How sincere was Cleopatra in her love? Leave your thoughts in the comments.